What up, what up? Welcome to yet another episode of Wheel Bite, Season 2, Episode 7. First off, happy holidays, everybody, to all our listeners. Thanks for tuning in. Today's episode is all about the Transworld videos, why they're awesome, and which one personifies the ultimate Transworld experience. Hope you all enjoy this one. This has been a topic we've wanted to do for a long time, so we were excited to talk about it. However, when we did this one, they hadn't quite announced that Duets was coming out yet, so we don't really ever reference that at all. Which is a bummer, because, that's the 30th Transworld videos. They've done 30 fucking videos, proving they are not necessarily going anywhere for a long time. I'll keep this one short. Here it is, episode 7 of season 2, the Transworld video episode.
Welcome to San Francisco.
Don't skate here. I feel like it's dangling by a fucking strain of bone marrow.
East Coast powerhouse.
From the New York, I stab you in the Russian fork.
Carter, it is fucking Friday the fucking 10th.
I'll give you $100 and I'll take out the Benihana and you slide that 75-foot handrail.
I especially like the flip of the board.
What up, what up? Welcome back to another episode of Wheel Bite, coming to you live from Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, California. Although this might be one of the last that we do at Haight-Ashbury, it will forever be in our hearts.
It's a short-lived studio in here.
Yeah, getting a little sentimental. I'm host one of two, Ted Theodore Mater. And with me as always,
Jay Green here.
Today we're going to get into a topic that we have, I think we've been wanting to discuss this one since we fucking started the show.
I feel like I say this for a lot of our episodes, but this was one of the first.
Oh, yeah.
I think that we were geeking out about doing.
Yeah, we were both super, super stoked on wanting to do this one. And the topic today is Transworld videos, in which there have been many now. I think there's like 20-something Transworld videos, which is insane to think.
For the high quality production for a while, they were putting in these videos. They were pumping them out.
Oh, yeah. You look at 99, and I think 3 videos came out, maybe even 4.
And the first, even the first few, they were like janky, but they came out in the same year too, I think, right?
I don't know if they all came out in the same year, but like you look at 99, you have, let's see here.
Yeah, Uno and Four Wheel Drive were both 96.
Okay. But then you have Transmission 7, Feedback, and The Reason all coming out in 1999, which is absurd. That's like...
Those are heavy, too.
Yeah, those are some of the best videos they ever
The
put
Reason.
out. Yeah. Well, first we got to kick it off with our typical choose one that defines us as human beings. I think my favorite is Feedback. That's the one that ultimately won me over. It's so good. You can't go wrong with that lineup, too. You know, Chad Muska in the height of his handrail destruction and the height of Muskamania, a part he notoriously filmed in like just a few days, half the time while he was wasted off margaritas. The Philly 3, Mike Maldonado, Kerry Getz, and Bam Margera, just as the resurgence of love was truly starting to kick into high gear. You have Andrew Reynolds, Birdhouse era Andrew Reynolds, right before, Baker became the hugest thing in the world. Shared parts with Arto Sari and Jeff Rowley and Ave and Jason Dill.
That's heavy.
Yeah, the only real like outlier in that video is fucking Neil Mims. Like,
That's funny.
I mean, I don't want to like diss him because his part's really good, and he has that fucking intro with the security guard that I love, where he's coming down the hubba and the guy like tries to stop him. He's like, "This thing could annihilate you, man!" Like, it's a great video part, but he is the one sort of outlier in the mix there.
Is that
That's
all you got?
I'm just picking one.
Okay.
For this one, or at least trying to pick one.
I think I'm going with one finally.
Yes.
For the only intro where I've had one favorite. Well, I'm sure as many of my friends and skater homies could tell you if they know anything about me, that probably my favorite skate video of all time.
Wow, that's a heavy statement.
Well, I'll go maybe top 3 of all time is Sight Unseen. That was like, it kind of defined me as a skater, like it defined my likes in skateboarding, because I saw the video pretty early when I was taking up skateboarding, and to always be into like the San Francisco scene and be into more like an underground scene, and then to see someone like Henry Sanchez get kind of a really big platform and be able to shine in something as mainstream as a Transworld video, it was a trip for me.
Yeah, he wasn't really like at the peak of his career at that point. I don't think he had a major sponsor. 2001 when that video came out.
His part though is beyond timeless.
Oh yeah,
like you could watch that and the lines he's doing at Third and Army, and just like the Pier 7 tricks and the song Planet Asia, Cali Agents.
Yeah, fucking Planet Asia
is fucking super hard. You got the Marcus cameos, and man, it's just it lit something in me, and that's just Henry's part. Actually, looking back on the lineup, like reading it, it's funny because I never really noticed how, I don't know how to put it, maybe lopsided or abstract this lineup was, because with a lot of other videos you can kind of see some similar theme here, but you got Dustin Dolan, Heath Kirchhart, Henry, John Cardiel, of course, and then Tosh Townend, which they all had really good parts. Tosh and
I actually love Tosh's part in that video. He skates to the Jay Mascis song, and
I like his part too. But I could probably give you like a handful of other Transworld videos that I liked the lineup better and the skaters better, but Henry and John Cardiel's part were just so fucking heavy for me that they made the entire video. Like, that's what made it my favorite video. John's part was just, it blew my mind. We used to have I used to have like non-skater homies come over to my house just to like smoke weed and shit after school, and they would always be like, put on that one video with that, like, because John Cardiel was like flying through the air and doing the Union Square handrail, and just like things that like people who didn't even skate could look at and be like, this guy is out of his fucking mind. Like, he's the most death-defying radical dude on a skateboard.
I mean, we touched upon it in our Thrasher versus Transworld episode, but how funny is it that like Thrasher's golden boy, John Cardiel, like the thing he is remembered for the most is a Transworld part. Yeah. And I mean, even the fact, you brought up the Union Square rail, Deluxe wound up buying that off Levi's, and they just put it at art shows and have it in their fucking warehouse somewhere. So
yeah, I think that's great that most people, I don't know, I guess depending on the skater and the age, but a lot of people remember John for the Union Square rail, and that that was in his Transworld part. Like, Transworld got to show that off, basically. And Henry, too. He's, like, was a gritty dude, had, you know, like, a reputation for not, like, you know, being the most friendly dude at times in that era. And he just shined in that Transworld video, like, completely. And he killed it, man. The skating speaks for itself.
Well, I think it's funny that we're bringing up these lineups and they're both kind of from the same era. And I think that era is where having a Transworld part like that meant something. Because Cardiel even said in his Epically Later that part of the reason why he wanted to do Sight Unseen was because he was seeing all these people putting out video parts that were just carefully thought out and put together, and that they were working really hard for. And I think that all kind of kicked in with feedback when it came to the Transworld videos, because, I mean, first of all, Transworld videos started originally because they were filming clips to get video grabs, which is such a funny reason for videos to start. And actually, the first real Transworld video isn't a Transworld video at all. It's the Skin Phillips project, Dreams of Children.
It's such a janky 90s thing.
What, put video grabs
Just
in the
video,
magazines?
just video grabs.
Oh, yeah, that was such a thing of the 90s, because, like, shooting film was so expensive, they knew they could just save money if they just pulled video grabs. And I guess back then, you know, the content really wasn't as high quality.
Well, skateboarding was also progressing so fast that, like, it didn't make sense to, like, put a still shot of, like, a manual trick or, like, a really tech ledge trick, you know what I mean, like, in a magazine. Like, they could do the video grab and fucking chop up the sequence.
Exactly.
So that was the time of when, like, skateboarding was just, like, getting way crazier, and it made more sense to do that.
But eventually Transworld did put out their first video, and our research has proven to Jay and I that it was not that great.
Uno is terrible.
Yeah, Uno.
It's a hard watch.
It was, and I felt bad saying that because the lineup of people they have in that video is insane.
It's crazy. It's super crazy.
Muska, Costin, Mark Johnson,
and that's pre Muska.
Right.
He's wearing what everyone knows him from Tony Hawk. He, like, in the intro or whatever,
when he's in the phone booth.
Yeah, and then he, like, puts on his Muska gear with, like, the backpack and the fucking rolled up swishy pants.
It's one of Jonah Hill's favorite parts, though. So sensitive subject matter there.
Deep cut.
Yeah, I think that's what he's doing to prove that.
Yeah,
he's in the mix. But yeah,
that's kind of a stretch. I don't want to go on a tangent about it, but, like, I feel like he said that just because that people will be like, "Oh, he really knows about fucking." That is not, like, come on, like. I don't know. I'm sorry. To each their own, I guess.
I mean, that's not the Muska part, especially in a Transworld video that I would choose to remember. But
and it's like a minute and a half of footage too. Or, like, everyone's parts are so-called parts. It's almost more of like a montage video.
The whole video, yeah.
Because even people who they claim to have parts in it, a lot of them only have like
a minute or two of footage. Yeah. I mean, like, the fact that Heath Kirchart and Paul Sharp share a part, that's like the most random two people to be together in a part. Like, I honestly don't get that matchup, because when I was reading the initial cast of who's in it, my immediate thought was that Heath Kirchart and Jeremy Klein would share a part, because they had done that with The End. I mean, that came later, but still, like, they were fucking bros. So that whole thing of Heath and Paul Sharp, and there was a lot of San Jose footage in it. Like, Gershon Mosley had a part too.
They started with. It's funny because a lot of those dudes ended up getting like real parts later on,
right?
In like the more established videos.
Well, Heath has had like 3 Transworld parts because him and Steve Barra shared a part in Interface, and that's actually the point where I feel Transworld really started to find more focus in their videos. Like the first few are kind of an experiment, 4-wheel drive, the first cinematographer project, they're kind of just playing with what they had kicking around. But then come Interface, the theme of it is very lame. It's like all computers and hackers, but you start to see some better skating, great music. I forget who it is, but someone skates to the Dead Kennedys in that video, and I want to say it's fucking Dead Kennedys. But aside from that, like, now they're starting to get more thematic, more structure, and then it's the Sixth Sense where I feel they really start to hit their stride, because that's where they start like interviewing people for their video parts, which is what I think back in the day was one of the most defining characteristics of Transworld videos. They're putting people in these videos that they're interviewing in the magazine, and that's kind of how they're tying it all together. It's honestly a genius marketing ploy.
I thought the weird kind of ambiguous theme thing that Transworld did, it's interesting to think about, because it's around the time when they're starting this like video thing with the magazine, and it's around the time that like girl chocolate videos are really starting to like catch a cult following, and we all know that all their videos have like more production behind them, kind of like a theme, if you will. And I think Transworld did a good job. You mentioned Interface with like the weird computer, like,
and Transmission 7 had like the satellite dishes.
Yeah,
and stuff.
I think they may have fucked up a little bit with those, and it may have been not the greatest like taste, but I think they did a good job in their heading into their golden era of like, it didn't matter what it was, but like it kind of went with the video. So like,
I mean, it worked for what it was.
So like sight unseen, like what really did that mean? You know what I mean? But like,
I don't think there was a theme to that one. I think once you get to feedback, it's not really as much of a theme or some sort of motif carrying the fucking video, but
right. But those titles went a long way. You know what I mean? Like
feedback, definitely. There's all those montages throughout it where you just see people kicking them out, and Ty Evans is asking random passerbys, "What do you think about skateboarding?" Josh Kalis in Love Park telling some Philadelphia city employee that more tourists come to Love Park to skate than worldly tourists come to Love Park just to see it. And that's, it's feedback. It's not like music feedback where you plug your guitar in and it goes. It's verbal feedback from the general public at large. But that is the point where they started, because you have, in a short amount of time, you have that video, you have the reason, and again, the reason, all the interviews, they're talking about what they love about skating, why they love skating. It's the reason why they skate. And then
so right, exactly. That's kind of my point. Is like they had this very like mild kind of thing, as opposed to like other videos around the time that kind of went really. They led with a theme, or like a sort of like production theme. That Transworld had it, but it wasn't like the skating and the quality and the production always kind of outshined whatever they were trying to do with whatever, if it was the title or the theme.
I remember looking at a Transworld from a while back where they were reviewing feedback right after it came out, and they were discussing how like, this is a video you put in your VCR, and once you finish it, you rewind it and watch it again. And that's charming and cute and all, but it's totally true, because I didn't actually see feedback until I was a grown-ass adult. I was probably like 22 or 23 when I first saw it. I never really cared about Transworld videos as a kid, to be honest. But feedback, I just remember watching it and being like, that is one of the fucking finest pieces of skate cinema I've ever seen.
That's exactly how I felt when I saw Sight Unseen for the first time. That was the first Transworld video I was introduced to.
What's even funnier, though, is that the DVD I have with feedback also comes with The Reason, and I think it was maybe 6 months before I even went to The Reason.
Oh,
I was just so into feedback at that point. It was so good. And then, I mean, The Reason is equally as fucking
waiting
good.
For you.
Oh, man, The Reason is so good. The Reason has some of my favorite montages.
Yes, Transworld montages. Oh, boy.
That's something I wanted to bring up, too, is I feel half the time I am more excited about the Transworld montages than I am about the actual, like, video parts. There's always such a good lineup of people in those montages. They usually pick great music, and they usually, I mean, they don't do this as much anymore, but back in the day, you'd get one montage that was just random video clips, and then the other one was all shot on film. It was the 16 millimeter montage, and that was always one of their most standout things. I always love those montages. IE has one of my favorite ones where it's the Sunny Day Real Estate song, and there's footage of Huff and Kevin Taylor, I think, has a trick in it. And then it ends with Chad Fernandez at Hollywood High, which is the footage that they're showing in Baker 2G, where Knox Godoy is like prank calling him. So they're playing the prank call over watching Chad Fernandez try and step to this rail. And that's the clip. And the clip in IE is so, you know, there's like a happy black lady like clapping for him, like when he gets down the stairs, and he like does it all like smooth, and it's on film so it looks all nice, but meanwhile the other angle of that is Baker fucking clowning him.
I think that the Transworld montages had kind of like an air to it, like a, you know, it was like a status thing. Like everyone, it was like you were the shit if you made it into a Transworld montage.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a 411 opener, but it was like 2, 3, 4 montages in a video. It was like the most banging clips, and they really diversify it. Like you could see Bob Burnquist doing some mind-melting vert, you know, like lip tricks, and then it would cut to like a manual trick at Pier 7 from like a Frisco local. They really knew how to capture everyone, and they really knew how to capture a lot of different stuff, but it still made sense in how Transworld was presenting it. It wasn't just like, oh, that was hella rigid and didn't make any sense, cutting a vert trick with a street trick. You know, the way they did it, it was seamless.
And then I feel like, so we're talking about these videos from the very specific point right now, like 99 to 2001 or 2. And then I feel like after that, they got even a little more focused, but not necessarily intentionally, or maybe it was intentionally. Like, a perfect example is a while ago, you were like, did you realize Subtleties is almost an entirely Sacramento-based video? I didn't. I never even put those things together, but yeah, Janowski, Biebel, Kyle Leeper.
Well, I don't even know if they meant to do that.
I don't either, but I mean, that's probably who they were covering in the mag. That scene was on the rise at that point.
Yeah.
Biebel was becoming a superstar. Stefan Janowski was quickly going into legendary status because he was conquering everything. He was Habitat's biggest pro at that juncture.
Let's use Kyle Leeper as maybe an example, because I think that video is really fucking good, and maybe not a lot of people talk about subtleties in the Transworld lineup.
No, I love subtleties.
And Kyle Leeper's part specifically is super fucking rad. And he was an under the radar dude riding for Expedition 1 for all these years, and he was like progressing clearly at a rate that no one really knew about until subtleties came out. And before we started recording this, we were talking about the lineups and how these videos were casted, and we were trying to find some Transworld algorithm of like they use this type of skater and this and that. And Kyle Leeper is a fucking great example, because and I don't, no offense, to him and his skating, I'm a fan, but like, who would have thought to put Kyle Leeper in a video with like these dudes?
Yeah, I mean, Pat Duffy had first part, so there's your OG coming out the woodwork, and then Beeble.
That's part of the algorithm.
Oh yeah,
there's always an OG.
We'll come back to that in a minute, though. But like, look at someone like Beeble, who was so on the rise. Because what year did Subtleties come out? Like 2003 or 4, I think.
Subtleties was 2004.
Okay, so that's 1 year after Yeah Right comes out, and right around the time Chomp on This had come out, and those were kind of Beeble's 2 breakout moments. And now here he is getting his own Transworld part. Brian Wenning, also
with the DC video was right around then.
Yeah,
too.
so Wenning was a superstar as well, and like we said, Janowski was, he was one of the top dudes on Habitat at this point. He was changing the game. He was becoming a household name within skating very, very quickly. But you're right, Kyle Leeper is definitely the anomaly in this whole thing. And one of my favorite things about that video is when Beeble is like, he doesn't skate like anyone, he skates like Kyle. And I think that's the most telltale thing about his style. And the shit he skates in that, like, he's not skating like any of the other dudes in that video. He was definitely the outlier of that lineup. And that, yeah, the fact that that is the Sacramento video, and then you look at something like Free Your Mind, and that's the SF video, you've got, and
kinda.
I mean,
it was the SF scene video. I actually don't.
I mean, Darrell Stanton's from Texas.
You're right, and Rob's from the East Coast, and Drehobel's from the East Coast.
But it was all in
But
San
they were
Francisco.
right, sure, and all 3 of them were like, had their roots planted in San Francisco, or their feet planted in San Francisco for like their skating careers. And that was, again, something we were talking about leading up to this. For me, Free Your Mind was very underwhelming, because
it's kind of a weird one.
It's a super weird one. I don't know. There was all sorts of rumors going on in out here in the Bay Area about like what happened with the video. Something like the video got cut short. We were all highly anticipating Rob Welsh's part coming off of Ride or Die.
Mm-hmm.
And me and the homies were fucking, it couldn't have come out any sooner. We were itching for this Rob footage, and we're so curious to what this part was going to look like. And it comes out, and I think he got injured, like had a pretty serious injury around the time, and I think his part didn't really come out how it was, how he had imagined, or something along those lines. And again, those were all just like rumors we heard out here. But it was, I think Dan Drehobel's part in that is one of the best Transworld parts of all.
That definitely is one of Drehobel's best parts ever, which is something to be said about that, because Dan Drehobel wasn't really ever a guy who put out a ton of crazy memorable video parts. Like, Heath Kirchart having last part in Sight Unseen was obviously like, he'd had so many video parts at that point. and he would have several more after that. But Dan Drehobel had kind of constantly flown under the radar a bit. I mean, he was a transition skater, but he comes out with this part. He has the ultimate song. Yeah. It's fucking amazing.
It's one of the most stylish parts ever, I think. Again, the way it just makes sense. The way Transworld presents his super stylish, almost like flowy, somewhat techy transition style to then like the street clips he has that are bangers too.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely presented as. I feel bad because I feel like the part is so good, but the video is like really kind of choppy and janky.
I think them trying the whole taxi cab skit thing was really weird.
It was super odd.
But I love all of those parts. Like, you say Welsh's part didn't meet your high expectations as a Bay Area local, but I love that part. I love the Selsky song.
Understand, though, at that time, he was like the guy. He was the dude out here, and coming off of Ride or Die. Ride or Die was just an insane part, and he kind of just like, he didn't come out of nowhere with that part. He was already kind of an industry name, but he shocked, I think, a lot of people with Ride or Die. And at that point, we were all like always hoping to see him skate at Pier 7. And he was like kind of just like a local urban legend of like all these wild things he was doing and how fast he used to skate and the shit he used to do at Pier 7. And then it came out. And then we heard he had maybe got injured or something, and it just, maybe that's just my perspective of him being one of my favorites and being a San Francisco kid and having that so highly anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not bad. It's not a bad part.
But going back to Drehobel, and like we talked about Henry Sanchez earlier, and how Transworld does this thing where they take OG skaters and give them a moment to kind of have the spotlight back. Like, look at some people too, like Shiloh Greathouse in First Love, or Peter Smolik in Let's Do This. You know, they were given that chance to come back and show that, like, yeah, I might not be getting the same amount of coverage or be the top guy that everyone wants to see anymore, but I'm still out there putting in work and doing great shit. Because, I mean, Shiloh Greathouse, his part in First Love kicks off the video, and that video ends with fucking Leo Romero, like, on the cusp of becoming one of the fucking gnarliest dudes in skating. So you go from Shiloh Greathouse, who can still do these, like, super creative lines just using curbs and sidewalks and weird little loading docks, and then at the end it's Leo Romero, fucking handrail, stomper, destroyer.
Shout out Pete Eldridge's part in Hallelujah also. He's another one of those that I think Transworld kind of, you know, he's a household name in the industry, but never like a P-Rod or a Malto or a Mikey Taylor or someone like that, or a Heath Kirchart. And it was in 2010, a little later in his career, that I think that part is insane too. Just his switch skating and his style. I think that's maybe my dream job, is to like cast for videos like this, because whoever did it with whatever type of formula they had, or if there was one at all, they really nailed it with the majority of the videos they put out. There's a few worth mentioning that maybe were a little weird, but you know, for the most part, even if it was a weirder lineup, they made it work.
Like, and now has fucking like Sean Malto and David Gravett, and like those are two people I would never expect to see in a video with one another.
Which is why it's so great, though. Also, that David Gravett part is, if anyone's listening out there,
Oh, Richie Jackson's in it too. I
you
forgot
have to
about that.
watch that. That like put David Gravett in a lot of conversations after that part.
And then, I mean, we get into the more recent videos too. Like, I love that one Perpetual Motion. I think that video is so good. That had like some amazing fucking parts from, you know, Walker Ryan, like at the top of his fucking game, like, as he was becoming the hugest dude.
Mm-hmm.
Silas Baxter Neal was fucking killing it at that point too. Jimmy Carlin before he kind of faded out into the woodwork, and then like even the video after that, Outliers, like Zared fucking having
Jimmy Carlin diss right there.
No, I like Jimmy Carlin, but he kind of faded away. Like, where did he go? He's chilling, but Outliers had like Riley Hawk, Neen Williams, and Zared Bassett, and Zared's part in that video is fucking insane, dude.
You know what I loved always was what comes to mind when you talk about that Zared part is the intros, the people talking either in like over the phone, like about the skater,
Right?
like Vinny Ponte does Zared's intro in that, and it's so East Coast and Vinny Ponte and amazing. That's one that really showed that so there's this thing that Transworld did, and I think that's why Transworld videos are so great, and they have this uniqueness that maybe a lot of people don't even really realize, which is they're this neutral party, essentially, and they're not a sponsor. I honestly don't even know if they're paying these guys to be in the video. I wouldn't be surprised if they were, but
I mean, it's mag coverage.
Right, it's bad coverage, so they probably get incentives from their other sponsors and so on and so forth, but it's, you know, to our point of how they're casting these videos of a Gravett and a Malto being in the same video it's awesome because, like I said, they're this neutral kind of binder that brings all these different rad skaters together. A video with, you know, Rob Welsh and Dandra Hobel, you know what I mean? Like Henry Sanchez and John Cardiel, you know, like, and then you get to, I think they probably started doing this a little later in their videos, but you start to notice, like in that video with Zared, you can tell that they're all like together shooting the video.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
like,
they go on trips together.
Exactly.
And stuff.
So they're not, Transworld isn't their sponsor. So like usually you have kind of a cohesive, especially at that time, you had a cohesive crew. Like each team had kind of a theme, and dudes on the team got along with each other because they were into similar things, you know, and they had similar personalities and kind of personas. But here comes Transworld, and they put this kind of really diverse group together, and they send them to Spain. And it's about building an aesthetic for the video, I think. So you see Zared's footage, you know, and then you see someone else in the video who has the same, who has tricks at the same spot in Barcelona, or you see them like high-fiving each other in some other country or on a trip. And I think that's really cool. It's a really cool concept for a video, and it's brilliant. Like, why wouldn't they put this crew together and try and have a mesh to have a better aesthetic of the video? I think it's great that you can kind of chronicle, like, oh, okay, that's what Zared did on that trip. That's what Riley did on that same trip at this, you know, same spot. Like, I think it's a really kind of brilliant idea.
Well, a lot of these Transworld DVDs that they put out, you know, when you buy them, they come with the special features, and they usually have like the raw trip footy. So like, oh, here's all the footage from the Arizona trip, and for this video, or here's all the footage from the Australia trip for this video. I have one that comes to mind immediately is I have In Bloom on DVD, and there's a whole special feature of all of them in Australia, and it's not everyone in the video, it's just like a couple of them. Like, I know Tony Trujillo is on the trip, and I just remember him most of all. But then, like, Cardiel is on that trip, so that's why there's all that footage of Cardiel in the montages, because he's getting caught up in the mix too. Speaking of In Bloom, though, for a second, I do want to touch upon how sometimes the Transworld part is really the skaters' only chance they get, and no one truly personifies that more than Alex Trainwreck Gall.
Seriously.
Like,
For
and I
real.
guess Evan Hernandez, too, in that video. That, I
Sure.
mean, that video was all about promoting the up-and-coming Young Bucks. There's no OG in that video. It's all about the youngsters, but half the youngsters in that video fell off. But then meanwhile, you have, like, Chris Cole, fucking Mikey Taylor, and TNT, when they're all fucking up-and-coming little kids.
That 1-2 punch at the time of P-Rod and Mikey Taylor.
Oh, yeah, I forgot
man.
P-Rod. He's the other one in that video.
They're really, P-Rod and Mikey Taylor were really hitting them on the head at that time.
That was a combo you did not want to mess with. But
Those Valley boys.
But now we get, like, to bring everything up to speed, we're here today now. The last Transworld video to come out was last year. They have not done one in 2018 yet. But the one that came out in 2017 was called Riddles in Mathematics. And in preparation for this episode, I watched it. And I gotta say, I was sadly underwhelmed, except by the Bobby DeKaiser part. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, man.
That guy is just, he's on some shit, man.
Yeah.
But there was no, I mean, the most OG person in the video, I guess, would be considered Bobby Warist. But, like, can we really say he's OG at this point?
Yeah, for sure.
We can? Okay.
He's an OG.
But the music wasn't that great. They're filming that, like, Spirit Quest style of VX filming, like shit's way too close and, like,
Super quick cuts.
yeah, a lot of movement and the camera work. And fucking Substance was kind of filmed the same way too. Like, and that is weird to me just because Transworld has always been so good about staying ahead of everyone in terms of how the product comes out at the end. These videos felt like they were just trying to keep up with the trends.
Sure.
And that's maybe why they weren't as remarkable. And not only that, like, the music in this Riddles in Mathematics video, I could not get down with it. And, I always thought Transworld had some of the better soundtracks in the past. Feedback, is a flawless soundtrack. Modus Operandi, flawless soundtrack. Sight Unseen, flawless soundtrack. In Bloom, dude, even some of the weirder ones, like First Love, has one of the best soundtracks.
Mike Carroll has the greatest Transworld video part song of all time.
Oh, Corrupt.
Yeah. That part is edited to that song is like, that's got to be the greatest song in any part, the way it's, like, put together.
Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily think Transworld fell off or anything.
Well, you can't blame them, and this is something that we continuously just have to talk about in our show here, which is just, like, where skateboarding went, where it's gone, modern day skateboarding with the internet and media and how it's covered and just how rapid it is. It's not really Transworld's fault. I think that they were blindsided like everyone else, and there's just, in thinking about this episode, I came to this realization of, you never hear anyone say, oh man, like how we do, like how me and you nerd out and reference, like, old skate parts, like, oh, fucking Welsh's part in Ride or Die. nowadays, you do not hear that. Even in big production videos. So, like, you never hear anyone like, oh, fucking blah, blah, blah's part in Pretty Sweet, which is one of the newer big production videos, or even the newest Lakai video. You don't hear people reference things like that anymore because, again, something we talk about all the fucking time, which is there's just an onslaught of single parts being put out. Like, so-and-so goes pro, they put out like a 5-minute part, or like this person has a new shoe colorway coming out, they put out a banging part. This person has just been filming in Europe all summer, they put out a banging part. And Transworld can't keep up with that because it was people like me and you who were purchasing these DVDs and VHSs that made them thrive, and people like us who are nerding out and referencing Anthony Papalardo's part in IE, and it's just not the same anymore because of how it's all just being dumped out, you know? So that's why I say it's not Transworld's fault, really.
No, you're right. And I mean, the biggest thing about all that to me is it's not even that Transworld fell off, it's that it's just more content on top of more content. I had a friend from the East Coast who was out here a few days ago, and we were talking about the Converse video, and I was referencing Sean Green.
You and that damn Converse video.
Shut the fuck up, man. I was referencing Sean Green's like Ollie over the train tracks because we were in that part of town, and I was showing him like, oh, and he's like, I don't even remember what you're talking about. I'm like, oh, but that was like one of the biggest tricks in the video.
Exactly.
And he's like, yeah, but he's like, how sad is it in skateboarding that I can watch an entire video and not remember a single thing that happened in it.
He's seen 12,000 other videos since that's come out.
Now, just for kicks here, because we're getting to the end of everything, but do you have like a dream Transworld lineup you'd love to see in a video?
Oh my god, dude. Put me on the spot.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to do, I'm going to give the most Jeremy answer ever here, and just like, it's going to be really long and elaborate. I'd like to do a series of like short themed things. So almost along the lines of Subtleties, where it's like kind of had a Sacramento-ish theme.
Mm-hmm.
The P-Rod one kind of had like a LA Valley type of theme to it. I'd like to do a short series of things just like that. So I'm not going to name any specific skaters, but if we do like a New York, LA, like San Francisco, Spain, like, you know, Paris, like kind of just like a spotlight type of thing.
Yeah.
And just kind of shine, because nowadays it's almost more about like skate scenes. Does that make any sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Like there's like scenes and like different vibes all over the world now, and I think that'd be cool to showcase. And of course, Transworld, if you're listening, don't ever make another video that's longer than 35 minutes. Because that's the problem. That's part of the problem, is all their videos are an hour plus for the most part, and you just can't keep people's attention.
Right.
What about you?
I mean,
Sounds like you've thought about this.
I'm going to stick to the old formula and pick some people who I think are either really interesting right now, and plus a couple OGs. I'd love
Raven Terche.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, but that's just
that would be someone I'd love to see. So like my lineup, if we're gonna like keep it all diverse the way Transworld used to do it,
has that like
that ATV style.
Exactly.
So like Raven is a person I would pick, and then like I'd love to see someone from Europe that not everyone really loves or identifies with as much as I do, but like someone like Fran Molina.
I knew you were gonna say that.
I fucking love him. So I'd love to see like a Fran Molina section, a Raven Terche section. I want to throw in Matt Tomasello for some true weirdness. I want my OG to be someone like we're going to go with either like Caswell Berry.
Oh my God.
Or like, even just for kicks, because I haven't I don't think he ever got a Transworld part necessarily, but Jamie Thomas, of course, my number one. And then throw in a couple,
Pull out the wheelchair.
and then throw in a couple randos like let's get a fucking PJ Ladd comeback part.
What's the black dude who rides for Palace? And he's always talking hella shit. I think it'd be a sick ass Transworld part.
Oh
God, I can't remember his name right now. Anyways, Raven and Tomasello sharing a video.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And then Fran Molina, Caswell Berry, Jamie Thomas.
I would love to see them at least give it a shot. Like let's bring back kind of like an old formula, and like let's see them modernize their style a little bit. Like I said, maybe maybe cut the video length a little bit. Maybe only have 1 or 2 montages. You know, like let's see Transworld catch up a little more, but still have their kind of that special touch of the older videos. I'd love to see them at least try it.
I would too. And now as we enter the final conclusion, I mean, I kind of wanted to, after talking about all these videos, figure out what video personifies a Transworld video the best way. And I mean, we've talked about it so much throughout today's episode, and I think it's kind of a no-brainer.
Probably.
But I think ultimately Sight Unseen was the point where they hit the mark. Like, there could be a chance that one day they'll outdo Sight Unseen, but I don't think they ever will. I mean, that lineup, we've talked about the lineup, flawless. Soundtrack, fantastic. You know, Heath Kirchart skating to the Moody Blues, the montage being set to Carrying His Creepy by the Shins. Cardiel has the Sizzla song.
Cardiel's fucking opening part, like, just fucking, oh man.
The Tommy Guerrero song over the end credits, too. Like, there's just so much dope shit. The fact, too, that the 16mm montages had, like, a lot of Carl Footy, Matt Hensley,
sure,
Bob Burnquist, Lance Mountain, fucking all those people. Like, it was just such a flawless video. They'll never truly be able to outdo that, in my opinion.
It was perfectly diverse and abstract, and I think that's kind of our whole point. A big point of this episode is Transworld was always able to accomplish bringing together all these different skaters, but making it look like they should be in a video together.
Right. And that's the thing about Sight Unseen. They nailed it in a way that's almost impossible to replicate. It's like a band making that one perfect album. I'm going to kind of go into my indie music nerd section here for a sec, but like, In the Aeroplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel. Do you know what this album is?
What do you think?
No. So, Neutral Milk Hotel was this weird outfit by this... It was led by this guy named Jeff Mangum, who was kind of a recluse. And he never really ever made another album that was as good or even close to as good as that. He did the whole thing on shrooms, and it was all based on these weird dreams he was having about Anne Frank. And I don't think he could make another great album like that if he tried. It was just kind of done on accident, and it worked perfectly. And I feel that same way about Sight Unseen. Like, all the elements just happened to be there, and they worked out perfectly. So you can't just recreate that kind of magic. It's just one of those things that happens once in a lifetime. What were some of the other ones you were going to mention that meet those standards?
I think I always go back to the feeling I felt when I first saw it. So like the Josh and Stevie parts were always just like very raw and shocking to me. And I don't know. I really like subtleties, because for whatever reason, it seems like a really cohesive theme, but not. It seems to me like Subtleties is the number one Transworld video where if you didn't know that Transworld did the video, and maybe if you stripped all the skaters of all the gear and sponsors they were wearing, and you're like, yeah, this is a board company's new video, or this is a shoe company's new video, it would make sense to me. Like, all the skating was very cohesive, and the video just seemed to like blend really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's kind of the opposite of what we're just saying with like something like Sight Unseen, but it still had that Transworld flair and top-notch quality to it.
I mean, the Transworld quality has always been something that separates them from the masses.
Right.
That's kind of why I felt weird about their newer videos, because it almost felt like they were taking a step backwards. You know, they're still filming on VX and like trying to look like Colin Reed or Josh Stewart videos or whatever, and I don't really know why. It's Transworld. They should be forward thinking in how they do things, and maybe that's why they haven't put out a video in 2018. Maybe they're trying to kind of figure out how to play catch up and
that's a good
do something
point
different.
The Drehobel part too, where it's like he's got a really sick style, like different style, but they put that like in Henry and John also. We talk about that in the Thrashworld episode, but they put that like crisp, clean Transworld like polish to it, which presented their skating in a completely different way.
Yeah, because Cardiel up until that point had never had like that same kind of quality part. He was the dude who was in like these anti-hero videos and like these old Dogtown videos, and it wasn't quite the same. But now here you have him in Sight Unseen, and it's like a truly cinematic adventure. But the Transworld quality, especially back then,
that's what they brought to everything.
Yeah.
Stevie, Josh Kalis, all these gritty skaters that, you know, who'd have thought that they would have played so well with like such a clean, crisp, artistic, but like very like high production value.
I think that's ultimately what has made Transworld videos great throughout the years, though. You know, getting a part in a Transworld video was a huge deal for your career to some extent. If you were an up-and-comer, it legitimized you, and if you were an OG, it once again made you relevant to people who might not know who you were, or people who just wanted to see you put out another video part, but it wasn't as demanding as, say, putting out a video part for a board sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's magazine and media coverage as opposed to this sort of, you know, if someone's doing a part for fucking Baker or for fucking Toy Machine,
maybe that's why they were so good, is because a lot of people maybe didn't feel like they had like, oh, I need to produce for my sponsor.
Right, exactly. It was them able to have maybe a little more freedom and creativity and fun with it, and that's why those videos stick out. You know, yeah, there were some things that were like death-defying and super memorable, but ultimately, you know, they got to just kind of skate what they wanted for the coverage.